Good evening. Welcome to On Bethel. I'm Paul Zetkowski, your candidate for selectman, as well as I'm here with Larry Krabus, who is the candidate for first selectman. Tonight we're going to be talking to you about the primary that may be coming very shortly. Also, we're going to be talking to you about how we became candidates for the Bethel Republican Party. On Tuesday, July 28th, we had a caucus consisting of over 200 Republicans. 200 Republicans who voted for the entire slate, which will be shown, or which will be voted upon, rather, in November. That caucus basically was very, very successful. The entire slate was accepted with the exception of first selectman and selectman. There was a challenge, and the challenge was by our current first selectman, Mr. Burke, as well as by Mr. Slifkin, who is running for also as selectman. However, I should inform the viewing audience of the following. The BRTC, that is the Bethel Republican Town Committee, voted in favor of presenting Mr. Krabus and myself as selectman, Mr. Krabus as first selectman. The Vacancy Committee made this recommendation, and this is a subcommittee of the Bethel Republican Town Committee, to the Bethel Republican Town Committee, that is the Vacancy Committee. Now, at the conclusion of a meeting of both Vacancy and the Republican Town Committee, they voted. Unanimously, Mr. Krabus and myself became the party's choice for first selectman and selectman. At the caucus, what occurred was a vote, since Mr. Burke and Mr. Slifkin challenged it. The results, let me read you the results. The results essentially was Mr. Krabus for first selectman, 119 votes. Mr. Burke, 81 votes. For the selectman's position, I received 128 votes. Mr. Slifkin, 67. This is the approved slate by the BRTC and of the caucus. Will there be a primary? We understand there will be a primary. Well, let me explain what's the necessity for a primary relative to the qualifications. The qualified candidates are Mr. Krabus and myself. The primary, if it's challenged by Mr. Burke and Mr. Slifkin, they have to receive 5% of the registered Republicans, which is approximately about 140-some signatures. To my understanding, that has been achieved. The primary, when will it occur? It will occur on September 15th. Now, Mr. Krabus and myself, we will run a primary which is respectful to the party, respectful to also the citizens of Bethel. And I want to introduce tonight Mr. Krabus here. Larry, welcome to the program, and welcome to, and congratulations on being the candidate.
Thank you, and it's good to have you as a running mate.
Thank you, thank you. Larry, you know, if there is one thing that I've been around town, you've been around town, we probably both lived here in Bethel for the same period of time. People have asked me, says, I heard the name Krabus. Yes, you have. You've been associated with, I believe, Board of Education and other positions in public service. And there are some people who are saying to me, Larry Krabus, that name's familiar. Tell us more about him. And this is an opportunity.
Well, if you've Googled Krabus, you've probably learned about a niece that I have who's a professional tennis player, but you won't find my name on Google. I've lived in Bethel for 30 years. My wife and my son are partners in a business on Greenwood Avenue, the Gift Cottage. I moved here in 1979. I worked with, at that time, General Foods, commuted back and forth to White Plains with a very good friend of mine who is now in charge of the seniors and the vet benefit program for Bethel, John Sarver. And John and I worked together all of that time. Going back and forth, we had a lot of time to talk about the town that we lived in, Bethel, and believe it or not, at one point in time we said, you know, when we retire we need to get involved in this. I managed a primarily sales and marketing for Maxwell House Coffee. The last 10 years of my career I managed the worldwide military business for, at that particular time, Philip Morris had purchased Kraft Foods, and they put them together, so it was Kraft General Foods. And it was a worldwide military business, and we had about $380 million worth of food business with the Defense Department and well over 250 people. While I worked for Maxwell House Coffee, I was a franchise manager for the Eastern franchise, where most of the Maxwell House coffee is sold and consumed, and that was about $1.3 billion worth of business.
A little bit more than what my experience is, that's for sure. I was only about 400,000. I mean, 400 million.
About 450 people.
Yeah.
I retired in 1996, and I'm beginning to think my wife and Pat Smithwick, president of the Bethel Chamber of Commerce, were in cahoots to get me out of the house and get me involved.
Well, no longer are you going to be retired.
No. I sit in on the board of directors on the visiting nurses. For the last 4 years, I have been a volunteer with the health department, working on business continuity and working primarily with emergency preparedness and hopefully against the threat of a pandemic, something like bird flu, but now we have swine flu that's upon us and is supposed to be an issue here in October. I hope not, but that's what we're planning.
Now, Larry, let's go into your background, my background, very, very similar. You know, I was in charge of global business development, marketing, sales in Europe as well as here in the States. But, you know, I think we want to also touch upon our families, because you and I, after, you know, we've talked with each other, you've got, what, 4 children? Four children.
7 grandchildren.
7 grandchildren, okay. You've got me beat there. Let's see, all the children have gone through the Bethel school system.
They have all gone through.
Bethel school system,
right.
And they're all...
2 of my grandkids are now in the Bethel school system.
Right. And basically, the children are also, most of them are, I believe, are college graduates, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
So, you know, basically we can say, hey, we're products of Bethel, because I can say also with my children too, all 3 of them attended the Bethel school system, all have graduated from various universities, and I'm a little bit suffering because of that financially, you know, but hey, that's parenthood for you. But all in all, when you really think about this whole situation here, here's 2 of us with management experience. You as you said, about $400 million, I believe you were talking about.
That was the last assignment I had
right.
with the military.
Right, and myself, I was in the biomedical arena, where I was responsible for about $400 million also. But management is management, no matter how you look at it. And I've always said that, you know, I've always heard this experience, is the government is not the same as private industry, but there's a lot of similarities, and I think you'll agree to that.
Oh, absolutely.
The first thing is that, I know you and I have talked about this many times, is open communication. This is something that, you know, it's not only found in industry, but also in government, and more so, I want to say, in government, because you're dealing with several different entities. It's not a product line. You're dealing with, you know, the entire health of the town, if you want to call it that. Now, if there is one area, I want to just pick on you a little bit right here. Board of Education. You're a member of the Board of Education right now.
For the last 2 years.
Yeah. Let's just talk about your experiences, how that has helped the town.
My business background and my people management background, I believe, and yours also, because we have very similar experiences in our work life, are important to bring not only to the Board of Education, but to town management. And one of the things that we've been able to accomplish on the Board of Ed in the last 2 years is really a more direct involvement in the operating of the school system. We don't make the calls for Dr. Chesley, but we do due diligence at budget preparation time. As a matter of fact, on this last budget, which was approved on the first vote, we started that whole process really in July. And we knew at that particular time that things didn't look great. not only in the state economy, but in the national economy, and as it proved to be, it got really bad last fall. And we knew that we had to get in and take a hard look at a number of different things. And I believe both Bill Kingston and I, with our business background, and with the others on the board, we worked together as a core group with the school administration. Mm-hmm. And we had a number of subcommittees. We have 7 different subcommittees, and in the past those subcommittees would be called into action by the chairman when the chair felt it was necessary to have some further insight, further investigation.
Firefighting, as we refer to it.
Firefighting.
Right.
But those 7 committees were active all year long. Right. Mike Duff and I were on the facilities committee. I personally got intimately involved with the building committee at the high school. I surmise I probably attended 80% of those meetings. One of the things that was missing from that whole project was a good school security system. As you know, there was an issue with during the construction of the school with a $300,000 water problem.
Right.
And you know, you got to make sure something like that doesn't happen again. The taxpayers have a huge investment in this infrastructure, 5 schools and the other buildings we have in town. And we can't have vandalism, and we can't have defacing of taxpayer property, and we can't have something like another $300,000 issue like this. The finance director of the school system came across a Homeland Security grant that we were eligible for and applied for it, and that funded about $70,000 worth of that project. The town, because of some revenue collection problems, could not do the required matching grant. We were able, through the Board of Ed, working with the school system, to find the additional money that was necessary to put this system in place. And it's a system now that will not only protect our students and our teachers, but it'll protect the investment that taxpayers have in this beautiful new building. And you know, if someone goes overboard and defaces or destroys or tampers with anything inside that building, we're going to know. Yeah. And we're going to prosecute, and we're going to seek reimbursement.
Well, what this all says to me, you know, and you and I have talked about this several times, management believes in one thing: plan ahead, okay, which you've done, okay, protecting the interests, okay, and seeing that this process goes forward. And the interesting thing that you said is that you had these 7 subcommittees. They're no longer firefighters, and I should really explain that situation. In the business world, we usually say when you're firefighting something, it's a crisis. You're trying to put a fire out, basically, because of a management crisis or a product crisis, whatever the crisis may be. However, in marketing and in business development, you always work on a 5-year plan. At least a 5-year plan. And whatever you're trying to accomplish, you look to the management, and the management says, this is the way we're going to focus this thing. We're not going to firefight anything anymore. We're going to plan ahead. And, you know, I compliment you.
Firefights become extremely expensive.
Yes.
I worked for a fellow who had my favorite saying that he used was, if you don't know where you're going, any road is going to get you there. And I'll give you an example of what the Board of Ed did with the school system. The school system developed a vision, and the vision was, what do we want the schools to be over the next 3 years? And we took it out a little bit further than that. Mm-hmm. But that vision now becomes a roadmap for where we want the curriculum to be, where we want the number of programs that we have in there, where we want technology to be. What is it we want to bring to our children and our grandchildren as far as a quality education at an affordable price? And every single department in that school system has worked on this. And it's a live document. I just went and reviewed the last update to that. And, you know, there's going to be changes, there's going to be course corrections, but now there's a vision of where it's going to be, and we need to do the same kind of thing on capital planning, maintenance planning for the infrastructure that we have in this town, because firefights are expensive. You know, you can't wait for a roof to fail and then try to find $50,000 to fix it. And that is sorely missing in Bethel.
Oh, absolutely. You know, and I can attest to that, being a selectman. You know, I've seen things here. And this is something that I think I want to talk about a little bit. Since I've been selectman for 4 years, and we know, I've always said, and Larry, I'm sure you'll agree with me, that when you have 66% of your annual budget being addressed by the Board of Education and their responsibility for it, when you have the individual who's at the top of the pyramid, namely the first selectman, and will not talk to the superintendent of schools, and will not talk to the Board of Education, how can you have effective management in the town? You can't.
You can't.
You can't. You know, this nonsense about, you know, if you don't tell them anything, they won't know what I'm thinking. That doesn't apply in industry. It doesn't apply in government. And this is something that I've been very, very concerned with for these past 4 years. This should not occur, because I've always said education in any town is the fundamental, it's the keystone of a town, frankly. And, you know, if you don't have the person sitting in the top chair, namely the first selectman's office, talking to the individual that is responsible for expenditures of 2/3 of your annual budget, something is wrong here. And this is what's going to be corrected in our administration.
It's not only education, it's every single commission, staffed by appointed people, or every board with elected people. I mean, you can't have one individual or a very small group be making decisions by edict or by dictate. It really takes people working together. We have some very talented people on these commissions, talented people that are running for boards in open commission slots, and they have to be allowed to do their job. You know, you give them a job to do, you empower them to do that job, and then you hold them accountable. And the people that they're serving are the taxpayer. And we can't get involved in dictates, vendettas, any kind of pettiness.
Yes. You know,
it never works that way, never worked that way for me in any business that I've been involved in. And if you study successful companies, you'll find people working together. You don't have the luxury of a number of people and all the money you ever could want. You don't find good, successful companies making all their decisions by consensus. But at some point in time, you've got to make a decision, but it's because you've brought the best thinking together, the most qualified people, and the best investigation, and then you make the right choice. And there are going to be some mistakes. But
nobody's
that's a better way to do it than,
than shutting the door on
an
people.
Authoritarian kind of move that I know what's best, and I'm going to make that decision.
Absolutely. Larry, you know, if there's, you know, you and I spoke about, you know, the taxing situation here in Bethel, and probably every other communities right now experiencing, you know, the very same thing that Bethel is. You know, we're in an economic crisis as far as nationally is concerned. Within the state, there's an economic crisis with budgets, and really, it really comes down to it. It falls upon the burden. The tax burden really falls upon the residential community, especially here in Bethel. You and I have talked about it, and I think I'd like to just elaborate a little bit about it. Is, you know, if there ever is going to be tax relief within our community, you really have to address things such as economic development. Economic development essentially, to me, means developing commercial, industrial things within the community. And I'm very proud to say that our Planning and Zoning Commission worked very hard on developing a Route 6 study. And to me, I think Route 6 is really sort of the Gold Coast for Bethel. And yet I look at the last 4 years and I've asked the first selectman, why don't we do something about economic development? What have we really done? It's something that's been lacking as far as I'm concerned, because, you know, the only way you're going to get residential tax relief is to expand the so-called commercial industrial segment of our community here. What's your thoughts?
If we continue to give lip service to this and don't get serious about it, we are going to continue to have the annual fights that we do. Mm-hmm. We're going to have services that are going to have to be taken away. And we're going to have to cut the bone and the flesh out of the school system. 80% of that cost is on wages and benefits. Mm-hmm. And we have some very talented new people coming into that school system with master's degrees and beyond. And you just can't pull them out and say, we don't need you any longer, and be able to fulfill the goal of providing a quality education at an affordable price. We're going to have to do that unless we get serious about economic development.
Right.
And it's not, in my opinion, just Route 6. We need to look for every area.
Yeah, right. We have the industrial park.
And nothing should be off the table.
Right.
And we need to bring the best thinking to the table. And it's just not Republicans and not Democrats. It's
everybody.
Everybody.
The independents.
Go out and find the people that can help put together a plan to attack this. And to go out and get some professional help too.
No, because, you know, I've spoken to, you know, surrounding towns, their leaders, and I always use the example of Richfield, for instance. I know they have a firm which that goes out and sells the town, in terms of commercial industrial development. Mr. Marconi, the first selectman there, you know, he says it's part of their annual budget to do such things. This has never been addressed in Bethel. And each year, you know, you and I have paid our taxes every year, but we've never seen anything saying, how are we going to help the taxpayer? This year has been very unusual. Yes, we went down to a 0% practically. But when you take a look, you know, there's some things that we really cut out. You cut out on the education side. We've cut some things on the town side. But you cannot continue like this ad infinitum. You've got to develop a plan, and this is something that I know we've talked about. You've got to do a long-term plan in this particular arena. Business development, there's no question. Every community's got to address it. This is not something that's a wish list, but if you don't, you're going to just place the tax burden upon the people. And this is sorely lacking in our town, because right now, economic development, if I looked at Clark Park, our industrial park, what have we done for the last 4 years? I don't know of anything, frankly. So, you know, this is an area. Larry,
we have an aging taking place, too, in Bethel that says that our seniors are probably burdening, shouldering a lot more burden than at this stage in their life they should. And we need to find a way to help them with that burden.
Right.
And a way to do it is by getting serious about this economic development. Right. And that's not going to be an easy thing to do.
No, it's not overnight.
Because every town around us has the same problem, whether you're talking about Brookfield or Newtown or Richfield. And there are just so many businesses that are willing now to start expanding. I know of one case where a chemical company was looking for a site and very much was entertaining moving to Bethel. But there was something there that said they either weren't welcome or we didn't make it easy for them to pursue that opportunity. Yeah. And we have to find a way to do that.
You know, this is the potential growth for Bethel. You know, I know from a residential point of view we're just about saturated, but from the commercial side, industrial side, there's the opportunity. That opportunity has not been examined as far as and challenged. Let's just briefly talk about one other thing here, and let me ask you sort of a final question right here. If in viewing the office of First Selectman, what are some of the key issues that you would address?
Being on the Board of Ed and serving on the board of the visiting nurses and the health department, and listening to my wife and son talk about the small business environment in town, I really think there's a need for people who understand and know how to work with people. And there needs to be a more civil environment, a more respectful environment. I believe that if you do that, that our town departments and our commissions and our boards are going to be more responsive to the taxpayer. And we need to be focused on the taxpayer.
Absolutely.
And that's the slogan that we have picked for our campaign.
Right.
We're going to be a taxpayer-focused governing body. And so will every department and every commission and every board. Be responsive. If you have a question, that question will be answered. If you have a problem, we're going to find a solution to it, or find someone who can find you a solution to that problem.
You know, that sort of sums it up. You know, I've been as a selectman already for 4 years, and one thing that I will promise, and I know you will promise, is that government is going to be open, very open with us, and it's going to be a open and friendly government. Okay, this is something which I really feel has been sorely lacking. You know, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to speak to the camera right now. You've heard Larry Kravis and myself here talking about government, our administration, what we plan to do. It's going to be something that is going to be cherished by all. You know, this is the first of many series that you're going to see on Tuesday night and Wednesday nights. I hope to see you next week again. Very same subject with Larry. And for On Bethel, I would like to say good night and God bless.